Anyway, we're going to talk today about context. Then we're going to talk about a few use cases and then move on to the outlook. Where are we at? If we talk about online gaming and gambling, these are significant market, right? We're talking about billions and billions. I mean, 140, 150 billion for gaming alone, and that's going to grow to 200 billion plus very soon. But what is also evolving very clearly is that if you look at PCs, consoles, and mobiles, well, mobile devices, especially smartphones, are clearly out the winner in terms of what's being used to game. And the loser is probably the PC, right? So people game with whatever device they have in their hand. We're going to talk about that later. In online gambling, the situation is actually fairly similar, right? So we're in a growing market, and it's accelerating partly. You know, we're going from something like 55 billion euros to double that fairly soon. And again, a significant portion there is being used, 40% or so on mobile device. So growing and mobile being increasing significant. Now, the other thing that's driving this industry is regulation. So we have a few extracts here that clearly states basically whether in UK, Germany, the Netherlands, or the US, there's new legislation coming in, it's stricter. It does not only pertain to gambling or gaming law, but it's also pertaining increasingly to things like anti-money laundering. So things are getting really stricter there. So on one hand, you want to make sure, even touch gaming and only gambling, because for certain games, you actually increasingly will have to ensure that some kind of kid playing the game is actually 18 plus in age. And we're moving from a kind of regulation that was enabling gaming providers to work with a declarative version, i.e. as long as the user through their web or phone clicks a button saying, I'm 18 plus, that's fine, to proof, some kind of proof that you actually are compliant with the given regulation, whether you're not on some kind of self-protect list for gambling, or where you have not been prohibited, or things like this, or as we alluded to, the age. That's one tendency we have out there. The other tendency is so far a lot of regulations were actually fine with progressive KYC or digital ID of the gamers and gamblers. Meaning in many jurisdictions, Germany being an example, you just start gaming by giving, gambling by giving a minimum amount of information, your name, and declare your age and whatever. And only once you start betting bigger amounts in a few hundreds of thousands, or when you want to get your earnings or winnings back, do you have to do a more complete KYC. There the law is changing too, and it's changing in some countries actually from next year, and what the regulators are increasingly saying, and actually the UK is ahead of the others in this, is no, actually you must really ensure there's a stricter compliance from the very scratch on, right? Partly driven what's called smurfing, so a lot of mini gamers can make big amounts. That's the tendency on the regulatory front, so stricter, more all-encompassing.
And we see that, Frank, from a gambling perspective, but also from a video gaming perspective, where in some countries like South Korea, children under age of 16 cannot play between midnight and 6 a.m. on video gaming platform. So this is extending and expanding beyond gambling. It's also the video gaming community that is hit by these regulation and compliances.
Clearly, clear tendency here, but there's also a drive being basically given by the gamers themselves. So it's all about immediate gratification. If they find an app they want to play with, it's got to work within. I mean, it used to be within minutes. Increasingly, actually, something is going to happen in seconds. It's about 60 to 120 seconds, right? It's got to be super intuitive. A few clicks, and basically you should be able to do something and to have fun with that game or that gambling, right, Guillaume?
That's correct. Yes, definitely. So, sorry.
Now, moving on, for the gaming companies, this is clearly an important portion, because it's where they can gain a competitive edge. So if I quickly look at this graph, I mean, there's a cost of onboarding a new client or converting, and there's a time to do so. And this is basically the current market, average, right? So if it is, and the cost being this is higher and this is lower, and this is like less time and this is more time, or you could also call it actually convenience. And what this clearly shows is that if you're in this danger zone, meaning it's more costly for you to convert a client and it takes more time or it's less convenient, you're clearly in the danger of losing clients because they will move to another game. So if you're not perfect in terms of costs or in terms of basically time, it's something you can improve. There's still hope out there. And definitely, if you can say, okay, the ease and time with which a client can onboard themselves on my platform is so basically fast and low, and it's so cheap basically to onboard a new client for. That means I can also be more cutting edge in terms of my pricing or my freemium, whatever approach I take. Well, this competitive edge is going to make you gain more clients. This is as simple as that at the end of the day. And all this basically leads us to what we call the EKYC imperative. So it's driven by player protection, making sure you're compliant with anti-money and terrorist finance, avoiding fraud, avoiding fake accounts, make sure there's proper in-gaming behavior that becomes increasingly important too. Make sure also people get the right updates and upgrades of the game. And also the other thing is finally, if you really know who is who, even abstractly so and anonymously so, without having like, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of fake accounts, basically you have better game analytics, and that helps you improve games. Now, Guillaume's going to give you a bit more of an in-depth dive into what it means.
Yeah, yes, let's deep dive into gaming challenges, right? And this is where you have a few different challenges. The gamer life cycle, I would say, is full of ambushes. And the game developer, publishers are only starting their journey when they want to publish online their games. This is where it starts, right? And this is where you can have the best game in the world if you are swamped in by issues such identity and the registration, like fake synthetic accounts, or compliances issues, like underage children playing on your platform, or at the transactional level, having a lot of fraud or fake order purchase and so on. And many other type of issues, as you can see here on this life cycle. Then your game and platform will be definitely a fraudster and cheater nest. You don't want that. You are ruining the good gamer experience, and you are plumbing your game reputation, and at the same time, potentially your revenues. So this is why during each of these life cycle, even in the gamer, from the registration to playing the transaction, all account activity, it's important, as mentioned previously by Frank, to take and identify who is behind that account, and is it someone that I can rely on? Is it someone that can take advantage of some of my offers, are going to cheat on my platform, and so on? So you really want to take the right information from scratch. We have seen a couple of different ways to do that, and there is definitely out there a few different approach. One of them, and this is where we have seen a lot of good result and uplift in detecting abusers and scammers, is in using their phone numbers. So a lot of gamers are often reluctant to give the full name, address, sometimes even the identity cards and so on. Depends from one platform to another and what type of video game you are in front. But the phone number has been really important in helping to first smooth the customer onboarding, and then secondly, just to make sure you can identify the user behavior, who is behind that phone numbers. If you think about it, the phone number is sitting between two worlds, the offline world and the offline world. There is a lot of data about that, thinking about credit bureau that have a lot of information on us, about from our address to the mortgage we have, type of mortgage, how many cars we drive, what type of insurance we have, and so on. And then you have the online world, right? And right in between the online world, we know that there was a lot of data out there from SDKs implemented in application to just websites, just sniffing your data and habits and so on. So in between you have the phone number, and the phone number sits really in between both worlds. Having a lot of data around the phone number is key, that it can help the user, the gamers, to have a smooth experience at different period of the life cycle between, as I mentioned here, you see the registration to the account activity, playing high value transaction. Maybe you can go to the next slide there. I would like to illustrate that with actually a use case. Who know? Maybe I should restart that and say, who doesn't know PUBG? So PUBG is player unknown's battleground. It's an online multiplayer kind of battle royale game. It's been developed by PUBG Corporation, which is a subsidiary of a South Korean video game company, Blue Hole. So one of the main problems since inception with PUBG was actually different cheats and hacks going around, from the most common one, right, that are in-game, to more elaborated one, with multiple fake accounts, gamers having different type of accounts and so on, cheating and finding ways to cheat the engine there. And that was a huge problem. As I mentioned earlier, if you leave the door open to scammers, this is a huge impact for your platform and your game. And since the last year and a half, 18 months, PUBG is still banning 100,000 cheaters a week in average. This is huge. Can you imagine the numbers of people trying to enter there? As I mentioned, some are very simple in-game hack, others are really more harmful with fake accounts and so on. But the genesis of all that is that cheaters start often by creating fake accounts. And so this is where we have helped PUBG to identify these fake accounts. And by that is, as I mentioned earlier, the phone number is a fantastic indicator for that and can help definitely to actually identify these scammers and the cheaters there. I had an anecdote on that yesterday and the day before. I was trying to find some of the most common hacks that people were doing on PUBG, and watching a video of one of the hack there, which was an Indian hacker showing how to create different fake account and then going on the game with some of these accounts and competing against each other of his accounts. My son stepped in my office and watched me watching a video game, and he asked me, "Hey, Dad, can I stay with you? This is cool. Are you walking?" I said, "Yes, I'm walking." "Okay, I'm staying with you." That's the kind of thing we do when trying to find out more about these hackers. But it means that this is for tomorrow. The world of tomorrow will be facing more and more online gaming, more and more cheaters and scammers, and our kids will be in front of these scammers and cheaters, and it's important for us to be able to identify that properly. So we can go, Frank, maybe to the next thing, and what we have done, show a few examples of what we have seen with PUBG was when we implemented some of our verification there.
Sure. Just to add to that, a lot of these games, it is what the algorithms do. They're gonna try to make either transparent what kind of level a participant has, right? And they're gonna mix them together according to these levels, because it's not fun in terms of gaming experience if some levels meet each other, like totally inexperienced and very confirmed player, right? So if people start selling basically fake gaming accounts to others, they actually destroy the gaming experience for those who game normally, right? Yeah. And that has clearly an impact on the revenue of those gaming companies. So you want to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, a quick check on the internet, and you can see that you can acquire a PUBG account for as low as $20 and up to a few $100s for the very good account. It's a single registration accounts. So this is incredible. There is also a parallel market of fake account out there. So this is, as you mentioned, this is running the good gamer experience. And for that, you want just to make sure you take the right action. And what we have done with among others with PUBG, and what we have seen in terms of fraud, is that the user behavior behind the phone numbers is actually we have been able to block 23 million high-risk attempts on their platform just in 2019, just for India alone. And that's been for us, it's really, we have seen a huge correlation between cheaters, scammers, hackers, whatever you want to name them. Usually people refer to them as cheaters, but there is more than just simple skill and cheating at a video game. You need to be able to hack some of these security barriers that have been in place in these platforms. So let's also call them hackers. We can certainly find someone going to find a name for these guys, cheaters or something like that. Who knows? But for the future, let's still call them cheaters. And these guys actually are using fake phone numbers to register. And by using these phone numbers, they are able to create many different accounts. They can also create fake Facebook accounts with these phone numbers, with their email address and so on, fake email address. So what we've been doing, we've been building. So we have a huge visibility on billions of phone transactions that happen out there. And these transactions are coming from authentication that are transited through our platform or through the telco platform. And we can assess based on that using few different thousands of indicators, assess the risk behind the phone numbers. And this is where we've been able to block a lot of transaction. And you can see some peak is in the US, India, China, Russia, where you have a lot of these tournaments, you have a lot of tournaments that are organized, and a huge community around PUBG, and a huge black market for all these accounts. And this is where we have been able to stop a lot of these cheaters, thanks to the phone numbers. I want to go to the next slide, Frank, if you don't mind. Thank you. Yeah, another way that we have been able to block some of these cheaters, just simply SMS verification and implementing SMS 2FA. So I hear most of you saying SMS, really? That results fraud? Yes, it does. At least, and Google recently did a recent study showing that it helps implementing 2FA through voice SMS help to reduce by 90% account takeover. And this is a big thing. Account takeover also has been a big problematic at registration, but also the account takeover during the account activity. So we have seen that the SMS notification is extremely important there. And I would say identity and fraud management in general, it's not a one-time thing you implement, right? It's a continuous process that involves legacy solution, like the SMS verification. I call that a legacy solution for sure, but still very efficient. And new cutting-edge technologies, analysis of the behavior of your phone numbers through a thousand of different indicators and machine learning, having access to local carriers information that provide you information on the phone numbers, such as the tenure, if it's postpaid, prepaid, how long the phone number has been active on the network. If you see that the phone number has been active for the last 5 minutes, there's potentially a problem there and you are facing hackers. If it's a postpaid account with a 10 years tenure, you might be on a safer side, right? I don't know a lot of hackers that are going to use their postpaid accounts that they have a good, they maintain very well for the last 10 years, right? So a lot of different information. You can also take a lot of different behavior from the pattern of that phone number. Did we see that phone number during the last 24 hours during a lot of authentication requests on different platforms? And that's very important, having a crowdsourcing model where you can actually see all the information around a phone number and where that phone number has been actually flagged as malicious by other members of that consortium. It helps definitely to also see the velocity of that phone number and any malicious actor there. So a lot of different things in the coming in terms of how to analyze the phone numbers. I will not go too much in details here, right? It's not the purpose of that webinar, but it's more like there is hope. There is hope, and we have seen a lot of different things there. And so in order to provide the gamers with a smooth experience, then you need to adapt and you need to implement, as I mentioned earlier, this legacy solution, these new cutting edge technologies, and find for the gamer a very good balance that is providing him at registration, a one-time registration where there is certainly some kind of two-factor authentication. And then all along the gamer life cycle, you provide in the background some checks on the phone number. Did that phone number change of owners? Did that phone number had been authenticating on a lot of different apps recently during the last 24 hours, within the last week, so on. And just checking, doing some checks, permanent checks that help to make sure that the gamers stay who is and who was at the registration. And that's extremely important. So I think, and for most of you that are in the gaming industry, I think frictionless has been one of the mojo, right? And we have heard that too many times that this is not frictionless enough. I think the role of the game publisher, the platform, and our role in terms of working in security is to provide a frictionless experience as more as possible, but it's not always easy. So sometimes you want to beef up a bit your registration process, limiting to a couple of information you want to take, like the phone number, and then you can do and operate a smooth monitoring of your user based on that, providing this frictionless experience that everybody dream about, right? I think this is from my part on PUBG, what we have done, and I don't know if there is question about that, but we can take question after at the end. And I know, Frank, you have another use case you would like to introduce also. So.
Sure, I want to transition to gambling basically, and to where we see in terms of shift there, right? I mean, we know there's still, if I look at sports betting, a lot of people standing in rooms, looking at screens and so on. But actually the biggest growth rates are again in people's hand in terms of sports betting. And guess which device they're using? Well, the mobile. And interesting enough, we see that they're even using these smartphones partly when they stand in these betting shops, right? So they can look at the screen, share the social environment or whatever, but when they do place their bets, they will increasingly tend to use their smartphone to do that for various reasons, payment, convenience, and all that stuff. But that's actually an interesting point when you look at it that way, because it's about this seamless experience. Now, the point is they come somewhere, or there was a friend in front of a TV match and tennis or football, and they see that the friend is betting, say, oh, what app are you using? Oh, well, okay, let me download that app too, and let me get started. That's actually, here the viral marketing is fairly effective, right? Now, if you want to get started while watching a game and betting on corners and whatever it is, it must go extremely fast. And back to Guillaume's point, there is some arbitrage to do between, okay, the ease and convenience, but also the security, right? I mean, at TELINDUS, we offer a tool where basically it ensures that you can trace all the actions that have been taken to that regard. And I think it's important that if ever a regulator comes in, you can show exactly what you did and how basically you ensure the safeguard in the system. And the tendency is really single-handedly give it seconds, and basically the other point is also when people come back, they want to be able to gamble or to place their bets very fast. You know, they won't fire up the device and having to go to 20 loops and checks and whatever before they can start placing a bet, right? So the onboarding has got to be fast, but also then the return has got to be fast. And having a platform that can also enable other features like, for example, biometrics and things like this that can verify who you are, you know, and then there I'll probably play the ball back to Guillaume. Having some kind of mobile phone-based authentication is clearly an enabler and a safeguard that will ensure that you can, on one side, basically place your bets quickly, change them quickly, but also come back quickly and safely to do so, right? So that, yeah.
Definitely. Sorry, I was talking on with my mic.
It's your son still there?
Yes, no, definitely. And you get the point there is just we were mentioning the friction and the mobile experience need to be really smooth, and that's extremely important to enable enough barriers for the fraudster to be turned off, right? But not high barriers enough to turn off also your regular users and the good users and gamers. That's very, very important. And this is a fine balance to find all together with some front-end development and proposal from a KYC registration perspective. And at the back end with a lot of checks that are done for at each step of the gamer life cycle. That's really important. I fully concur with you on that.
And only to reiterate, the thing is, the regulators, when they look at this and they come in and check, there is no expectation, for example, also when it comes to monitoring this thing, there's two things. The first thing, okay, you should avoid at all costs for this to happen on your platform. But even if it is happening, then the important thing is that you're actually able to prove that you did what requires to be done and have implemented the best effort, technology, and processes possible to avoid it, right? Because very often, actually, people get fined not only for the fact that has been something malicious happening in their platform, but actually simply they haven't put the systems in place to avoid that this would happen, right? These are two different stories. And that's why it's important to have a backbone basically that encompasses that without disturbing the gambling experience. And I said there are many tools for this, right? It can go to biometrics, it can go to behavioral analytics and things like this. Behavioral is actually very strong, and it has a huge advantage that it's actually discreetly running in the background. It barely it doesn't disrupt really the experience on the front end at all. But it can make a world of difference, especially if you have returning players who are working with you. Want to quickly to take a leap into the future in terms of outlook and just basing ourselves on one use case. So we have seen recently Razer, that's a gaming company in Asia, mostly based in Hong Kong, signing a cooperation through their subsidiary Razer FinTech with Franklin Templeton, which is probably a very conservative asset manager. So you feel like, wow, how did that even happen? Well, Razer has realized that people actually increasingly live in their gaming universe. They're not just there to game. Actually, when you game, you put, you get in-game credits, you communicate with other gamers. And they figured, well, why don't we start processing payments between those gamers? For example, you may have accumulated points that are worth money or put cash into the gaming app itself so you can buy skins and more power and more features, all these things basically that actually make the gaming company profits. But what if you get fed up with the skin, you want to resell it or whatever, or you sell it back to the gaming company, take the cash and transmit it to another gamer? So they started with payments, and actually they're processing $1.8 billion in payments. That's pretty significant account, right? So that puts a much higher onus on them in terms of being sure who the gamer is, right? And now they're saying, well, why don't we offer investments also through our platform? Because I said, people spend hours and hours here. It's not only about gaming. They realize that some gamers, actually, they don't game, they just chat to each other in the game, right? So that means they're comfortable in the design environment. They like to design. And that kind of leads me to saying that actually gaming accounts by themselves have become an immensely valuable asset that goes far beyond just gaming, right, Guillaume?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we see that the gaming accounts becoming these valuable assets, as you mentioned. You want to ensure your most valuable assets. We all want that, right? And this is why benefiting from that this really fine line between gaming and wealth assets management, it's definitely something that is mind-opening and show a clear way to the future where actually your gaming account is becoming like your bank accounts, and you want to benefit of the same security. And again, we talk about earlier about compliance and so on, and God knows that banks are over regulated for the best, right? But this is a hopefully a complex world, right? And so you want that the transition from the gamer stays smooth, and you want the same type of security that you have on a bank account on your gaming account from a security perspective, and make sure you already are ahead of the curve when it comes to regulation and so on, and you are already having all these security and implemented in advance. So this is a great leap towards the future. I think it's not even the future, we are already in it. This is happening right now, but that's going to be more mainstream, let's say. And I bet you, my son, who is 5 years old, who interrupted me yesterday when I was watching that video, certainly a few years from now, he might not have a bank account, but a video game account, right? With his money in it. Who knows?
And I think it'll be easier for video gaming companies to start creating services for this new generation of users, right? Than for banks to start offering gaming. I think I wouldn't take bets on going that way around. And actually, since, I mean, this online gaming is, I mean, it is not that new, but it is fairly new, right? Compared to when you, Guillaume, and I started with Pong and then Atari and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't make us younger. But actually, just being in-game, you're going to accumulate so much value over time. And in some gamers will have gamed for 30 years soon on a platform, right? World of Warcraft, these are the things. Actually, an account like this is worth tons and tons, right? If you have accumulated points and stuff. So there's a huge value to it, right?
Yeah, definitely. I fully concur with that. And I think this is extremely important to recognize that now. And from a security and gamers experience, it's important that the platform, the publisher are ready to move into that direction. And it means that you need the right tools and the right partners for that.
Yeah, and I think that's one reason also the regulators are becoming more stringent, because they're slowly grasping the value of what's going on basically with these gaming accounts and these gambling accounts, right? That used to be something on the side, you don't look at it, but now realize there's a real value in terms of abuse also. As soon as there's value, there is a value in abusing it, right?
Yes.
And that's why what you offer, especially Guillaume, and we offer holistically and tools, is basically to protect that value, right? That you as gaming companies or as gambling companies have been building up over years.
Yes, I think we have 5 minutes left. Maybe I think there was a few. I saw a question popping up. Might take that one. Let me check. Oh, Christina, I don't know if you. Oh, I get access to it. I'm gonna read that one. Okay, what
I don't see it. But...
You don't see. Okay, so I'm gonna read it for everybody. What new gaming experience may we expect in the future, and what is the consequence? Ooh, that's a very good one.
Yes, so I have a few elements on this one actually. So in terms of new gaming or gambling experience, the new thing is clearly VR and AR, right? Virtual and augmented reality. I mean, it's already valued at, 8 billion right now just for VR, right, for last year. So it's anticipated to grow to like 50 billion in like by 2025. It's growing at rates of 30% plus. So the adoption rate for this technology is really huge. And we're talking about projections in terms of users like of 200 million plus fairly soon, right? Once the technology threshold is broken there. The challenges are probably more or less the same that we have. And it's coming also to your mobile devices, increasingly so, right? That you won't carry around a console anymore. You will have these VR glasses you can carry like something else. And when you meet some friends, you'll sit at a table, put them on, and basically start VR gaming or AR gaming, actually, right? Shooting at dinosaurs that walk through the wall, whatever. The thing is, so that's clearly a future I see coming fairly fast. And the thing is, it gets far more personal because you are in the game yourself, like nearly physically. You're sharing far more information about yourself, so sensitivity is also going to increase and the impact on you. Yeah, so that's clearly something I see coming. I don't know what your perspective is from Guillaume, and then.
Yeah, I definitely the AR VR was the main word ahead, but the main thing from a security perspective, you stay as the same, right? You have an account, you want that account to be ultra protected, to be safe. The only other hack I can see is that, as you were mentioning, as we see today with the mobile gaming and the different type of attack you can have on your cell phone, like SIM swap, porting,
Yeah.
and so on, you're going to see with the same kind of thing with the devices themselves, right? The device is going to be powered by 5G today, maybe 6G, 7G, whatever. I will not even advance myself to the level of President Trump to say 7G, but whatever. But yes, with 5G, you're going to have these devices that are going to be portable. You can take them everywhere, and you're going to have also eSIMs on it. So certainly a lot of problem that's going to occur there. But the genesis of that is your account. You want that account to be safe and to be wherever you go, wherever you are, that account need to be bulletproof. That's definitely. And the consequence is that gaming going to be more and more individual, but also more and more social with more and more tournaments. But it's kind of the dichotomy there that is pretty kind of very, it's not new, it's already happening, but the VR and AR experience is going to certainly antagonize that more and more.
And it's an interesting point because actually we talked a lot about gamblers and gamers, so who are like, but it's so much more immersive that a spectator, now today you have huge stadiums and they look at competitions and so on, but actually as a spectator, you could probably immerse yourself in the game. You wouldn't disturb the gamer, they wouldn't see you there, but you would be standing right next to them while they're doing stuff, right? Which I assume to a certain extent then the KYC of the spectator is going to be the next challenge, right? Because they're so immersed in the game. Again, linked to agent and all that stuff, right? And it's the same with the gambler. I mean, you could be, based on AR, you could be in the horse race. You could be on the pit with the soccer player, basically, while they're playing, right?
Yeah, right.
I don't know if we have any other questions or time for it.
Yeah, I see. Have we seen a shift in gamer online behavior since the start of COVID?
Yes.
Big time.
Big time, I would say, big time. So, I mean, one thing I've seen clearly is what do I call an acceleration, right? To more sophisticated gaming, to more sophisticated devices, right? That's clearly one thing I've seen. I don't know what you have seen, Guillaume.
Yes, we clearly have seen an adoption since COVID, a high adoption of gaming, and more fraud. As a saying, right? More adoption, more fraud coming in. Scammers, fraudsters, cheaters. I don't know still how to qualify them. I will find a name certainly before end of this session. But these guys have been really crafty and creative, using different resources that are available on net to create fake accounts. SIM swap has been on the rise. We have seen a lot of different type of fraud, but all in all, one of the things that struck us is that a lot of platforms out there didn't have the most simple or basic way to protect their account at the registration or during the life cycle events during the account activity, which was simply to enable two-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just the same. Enabling two-factor authentication, you already reduced by 90% the risk of getting hacked. And that is really the basic. And then when you get there is additional things and additional steps to take. But this is really what we have seen. It was the lack of some of the platform not being ready.
On the gambling side specifically, one shift we have started observing, it's an age shift. So we just showed the picture beforehand of like some going into a place to do. And actually a lot of these people have moved online, which they would never have done in the past, right? Mm-hmm. So you have these people that are moving online because actually simply I'm a senior, I'm a risk group, so I want to suddenly work with my mobile to place my bets. They're totally non-native, so they can basically, in terms of like social and other types of hacking, they hacked far more easier, right, in a certain sense. So it goes to a point where you must make the experience super ergonomic for these non-digital natives who want to start using it. That's number one. But also the second factor, you must really protect them, right? Because they don't know, if they would get some kind of message saying, oh, give us your credit card number or whatever, they would actually have more prone basically to give these things away, right? Because they haven't grown up with it.
Yeah, it's a very valid point there. Definitely. COVID has changed a lot of things, and
and it's a big market. This is a big market, especially for gambling in terms of spending power. It's a huge market, right? And a lot of actually apps and so have not been designed for that market. It was more designed for the younger new generation, right? But some are even considering slightly redesigning the processes if they identify somebody as being a senior to make it easier for them to onboard themselves. We have, for example, chatbot functions, things like this that can help people in their onboarding and secure it, right? All these are important features that can simply help these people use this device who actually think that, you know, in today's environment, they have no other choice if they want to continue gambling.
Yeah, definitely. I think we are just over time. Any other question from the attendees there?
I think that's it, guys. We don't have any more questions. We will be sending video recording to everyone that attended. And yeah, thank you, Guillaume, and thank you, Frank, for sharing these insights with us.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity.